Good morning, friends. My name is Dr. Adityanjee. I am the President of the Council for Strategic Affairs. We are having our monthly roundtable discussion. Today is Saturday, May 10th, 2025. Those of you who registered this program saw this flyer. There's a mistake in this flyer. Dr. Kalpit Mankikar is not able to join. We have a substitute panelist and we shall introduce him. The topic of today's panel discussion is Trump 2.0 global tariffs and China's counter response. Before we go on to the exact topic, a little bit about Council for Strategic Affairs. We impart education in the field of international relations. CSA fosters discussion, dialogue, and debate on geopolitical issues. Council encourages strategic studies in general to raise the level of awareness. We condemn terrorism in all its forms worldwide. CSA aims to contribute towards world peace and prosperity. We promote people-to-people contacts and track to diplomacy. Please subscribe, like, and share to the CSA YouTube channel. CSA is registered as a 501c3 organization with the IRS in the US. Our audience who are based in US, we request them to donate and support to the CSA. The link is there on the website. So we have a monthly roundtable discussion, usually on a second Saturday of each month at 10 a.m. EDT that we are having today. We are also hosting a monthly guest lecture by a domain expert, usually on fourth Saturday of each month at 10 a.m. EDT. There's another feature, which is a one-on-one interview, strategically speaking with Dr. Adityanjee. Council organizes symposia, meetings, and conferences. We promote publication of articles on geopolitics and related subjects. There is a summer internship program for college students and a fellowship training program in strategic studies. Currently, we have 2 training fellows, Harsh Sinha and Khushi Mishra. Please subscribe, like, and share the CSA YouTube channel. Again, CSA is registered as a 501c3 organization with the IRS in US. So please donate and support CSA. So our panelists today are, starting with the first one, Mr. Ankush Bhandari. Ankush Bhandari is an author, public speaker who has co-authored books on geopolitics. He has penned more than 100 articles. He appears as a panelist on major media platforms. He has experience over 24 years in the IT industry. He is a strategic thinker and geopolitical analyst. He blends conservative values and deep expertise in global politics. He is one of the co-founders of KONA and frequently participates as a panelist on Indian and Asian media and dedicates his time to volunteer for local causes. I'm very proud to say that he also serves as a member of the board of directors of the CSA. Our second panelist is Professor David Soong. Professor David Soong is currently an associate professor in linguistics at Nieh Medical University. He teaches in China to the international students, mainly from Asian countries, and does translation-specific courses to Chinese language learners. His academic focus is on the contrastive study of Chinese and English, aiming to reveal similarities and differences between 2 languages linguistically, culturally, psychologically, and anthropologically. He is an expert member of the Translators Associations of China. He serves on local committee of Chinese Democratic Construction Association, a democratic party entitled to participate in and deliberate on government affairs, submit proposals to the government, and exercise democratic supervision over the government performance. He is also a member of the local branch of the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference. He has tabled more than 10 proposals to the local government through local Democratic Party committee or the local branch of CCC, PCC, mainly in relation to environmental protection, urban construction, education, and Medicare. And this is, I believe, the third time he is participating as an expert panelist in the CSA discussion. Our next panelist is Professor Sen Nieh. Professor Sen Nieh is a very distinguished retired professor of mechanical engineering at Catholic University of America. Dr. Nieh started as an assistant professor immediately after completing his PhD in 1983. Throughout his tenure at Catholic University of America, Professor Nieh served as a chair of Mechanical Engineering Department 5 times and guided many graduate students through master's thesis and PhD dissertation. He has been recipient of several awards, including UN Award in 1992 and Charles H. Kamen Award for Excellence in Teaching in 2007. He is a researcher, has published over 100 scientific papers, has served as principal investigator in numerous research projects. Professor Nieh is an advocate for religious freedom, human rights, and China affairs. He has been invited to speak in a number of settings. He currently serves as a professor emeritus at CUA and continues to facilitate his ongoing contributions to the department and school. He is eager to start his new chapter in life in retirement and plans to travel and learn five-string banjo. He is a fellow of Center of Human Rights, Human Ecology Institute at Catholic University of America. He is also adjunct professor of engineering at Yuanzi University in Taiwan. We're very proud to say that he has appeared on our platform several times. Our last panelist is Mr. Sumeet Jain. And Mr. Jain is a growth consultant currently based in Beijing, China. He has a strong background in economics and finance. He has extensive experience with advising companies and individuals. His work is grounded in deep understanding of real-world business landscape, which he observes very closely to provide informed and strategic insights. His career spans over 26 years, during which he has worked in multinational companies across 3 different countries. For the past 13 years, he has been dedicated to helping businesses in China achieve their growth objectives. In addition to his consulting work, he is a well-known public speaker in China, regularly sharing his expertise on economic and financial matters. He has a degree from London Business School, which he has equipped him with robust foundation in business principles and practices. So today's topic is Trump 2.0 global tariffs and China's counter response. Everybody knows that President Trump's second term in the first 100 years, first 100 days has changed the geopolitical discourse in the entire world. In his first term also, President Trump had imposed tariffs on China. In his second term, he started gradually increasing the tariffs to China to up to 145%, and on some selected products up to 245%. China, in response, imposed retaliatory tariffs on US products to the extent of 145%. As we speak, a delegation from US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and US Trade Representative Jamieson Greer are conferring with Chinese Vice Premier He Lifeng in Geneva. The continued bilateral trade cooperation between US and China and fostering a multilateral trade relationship has geopolitical significance, not just for the Indo-Pacific region, but also for entire world. So it's very important to discuss this topic in a scholarly manner without nationalistic, jingoistic feelings. So before I start with the panelists, some housekeeping rules. I expect everyone to mute themselves to avoid noise interference. Please change your cell phone to vibration mode. Please do not interrupt our esteemed panelists. Only those members of audience who identify themselves openly will be allowed to ask questions. No anonymous questioners, please. All the questions are moderated through the chat room. Please be very specific and precise in asking questions. Don't send lengthy comments in form of a monologue. This program is being recorded and being live streamed on our YouTube channel. It will be available on our website also. Please subscribe, like, and share CSA YouTube channel. Again, CSA is registered as a 501c3 organization with the Internal Revenue Service in the United States. Please donate and support the CSA. The link is on the website and is shown there. Now I'm going to start inviting our panelists. Our first panelist is Mr. Ankush Bhandari. All the panelists are going to get 7 minutes each. My humble request to all the panelists, please do not exceed your 7 minutes time. So let's start with Mr. Ankush Bhandari, who will give us the US point of view on the issue of tariffs, bilateral tariffs. Mr. Ankush Bhandari, the platform is yours. Please be my guest.
Okay. Namaste, everybody, and good morning and good evening where you are in the world. So thank you so much, Adityanjee, to give me the chance to speak on the this very innovative topic which is going on in the world, has shaken the world. So I am trying to share my screen. Are you guys able to see that? Okay.
Yes.
Good. So as Adityanjee has already mentioned, the tariffs is not the one. Why it's not? Yeah. So as Adityanjee has mentioned, that tariffs is not it started now. It was started almost 6-7 years back during the first Trump administration. So I have very briefly mentioned with the highlights here how it started in 2018 in the February, when US started imposing on a certain paths like solar panel, and China started retaliation. So in the first phase of the Trump administration, or the first time when it was there, they have started imposing because there was a huge gap difference between the trade imbalance, what they call. So it started over there till 2020. When Biden administration joined, it was there, but at some extent it started halting, or it started even reducing at one level. But since the back of Trump in the office in 2025 on January 20th, if you see here, the US has started imposing a lot of tariffs under different laws, under different uh, 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 constitutional, executive orders. So they have already started it, and this is how the tariffs has gone. Started from the February 4th, in which small tariffs were imposed, and gradually started increasing under Section 232. Then it started increasing, and China also started retaliation back. And as many of you know that, or I will say all of you know that, some tariffs are almost 145%, and other are 245. And this is the overall summarize of how we can see here that during the Trump 1 administration, the tariffs started in January. It's keep on increasing. And then from 2020, when Trump administration was no more and Biden was there, it was almost, if you see, it was a straight line, a little bit up and there it goes. But in the second administration, as it comes in January, till in the first 100 days, as you know that, it has increased significantly. So to summarize, we have 6 stages. It started the first in 2018. Second, it risen just 12%, and then finally to 18% in the stage 3. If you see, there was almost little changes. It was stagnant. In the stage 4, there was a little another set of tariffs kicked up, and in stage 5, when we see that both the tariffs are almost, one agreement, and tariff between both the countries remain elevated, but mostly stable until 2025, January 2025, till the Biden administration. And in the final 6th phase, we are seeing that the world has witnessed a history in the tariffs war with China. So coming to the next slide, if you see this, they say that these are the main key insight, and I want to focus on this slide for a minute, because these slides will show you how the tariffs has been imposed under what act. So Trump has imposed the tariffs under IEEPA, which is International Emergency Economic Power Act of US, against the three countries: Canada, Mexico, and China, because fentanyl has become a pandemic in US, and more than some reports say it's more than 100,000, some say it's more than 200,000, but it's still contradictory how many people are under the influence of fentanyl. So under this act, he said it's an emergency and we have to control fentanyl imports or smuggling, I will say, into US through these three countries. So this is the main under what he has imposed the tariffs. So if you see here, the average applied tariffs over here was risen to 25.5 or 25.8%, and the average effective tariff will be risen to 11.3%, and it is the highest since 1943, the Second World War. And if you see here, there have been 10, it has been said that, okay, with this in the next 10 years, American government will have $2 trillion in its shoppers to from this tariff war. So now let me focus to the next slide, in which we can say, okay, $1.1 trillion will be obviously from the imposed tariffs which we have, and another $1.2 million will be from 145% tariffs. If China continues, then it will be, but the pundits are saying that we have a little revenue. On with this, and it will be very, very less over here. Okay, so if you see here, the estimated is 2.3 trillion, which is 71% of the US import tariffs. So here we have also reciprocal tariffs, in which the tariffs has been going on and off. So this is what it mainly shows. The good point here is that we have only April. We have a 90-day pause period, which President Trump has already said, and let's see what happened. And we have already seen one agreement has been faced. So these are a couple of the main products on which President Trump has imposed tariff, because he said this will have help the American economy to boost. So these are the main. I will go here quickly in 10 seconds, that how the imports have been impacted: 430 billion on China, on autos, on semiconductor, on lumber, and everything. And here, if you see, it is being said that wages will be impacted badly because of this tariff. But I can go in detail if anybody has a question, because I know I have just one more minute or a couple of seconds left. So if you see here, we have a couple of the conventional and dynamic revenue, how it is going to impact in the next 10 years, and how America will have $2 trillion in its pocket. So these are the way we can see how the tariff has impacted to raise the applied tariff rates. So, and this is the highest since 1943, as I mentioned, and how we can have the effective tariff and how it will have all on the behavioral adjustment. These diagrams are very well put by some of the economists in the United States. So that's all I have. If you have any question, I will be happy to answer during the question answer session. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Ankush, for presenting a very succinct presentation on US tariffs on China and its impact on economy, probable impact on US economy. Now it's my pleasure and honor to invite Professor David Soong, who is based in China, and he will give us the Chinese point of view, what China is doing about US tariffs. So Professor David Soong, the platform is yours. Kindly unmute yourself, and you have 7 minutes. So please go ahead.
Okay, thank you for giving me this opportunity to share with you my opinion on the ongoing tariff war between China and the United States. I'm not an expert in economics, so I just analyze it from an ordinary point of view. Well, from China's perspective, the U.S. decision to impose high tariffs in 2025 is part of a broader strategy to contain China's economic and technological rise. You know that Chinese analysts say the tariffs is a continuation of long-standing U.S. efforts to maintain global dominance, particularly in the advanced technology sectors, where China has been making rapid progress. A key reason cited by the Chinese experts is U.S. concern over China's industrial policies, especially the Made in China 2025 initiative, which seeks to advance China's manufacturing in areas like robotics, artificial intelligence, and new energy vehicles. Chinese commentators view the tariffs as an effort to suppress these ambitions and stop China from closing the technological gap between China and the US. They argue that the US claims of forced technology transfer and intellectual property theft are exaggerated and primarily serve as a pretext for protectionism. Well, geopolitical factors also play a major role. In 2025, the Trump administration linked trade measures to security concerns, including China's role in producing and exporting synthetic drugs like fentanyl. China's experts interpreted this as the U.S. externalizing its domestic issues and using non-trade factors to justify economic pressure. Additionally, the tariffs are seen as driven by U.S. frustration over the bilateral trade imbalance. However, China's economists pointed out that the deficit is a structural issue tied to global value chains where China acts mainly as an assembly hub. Therefore, they believe the tariffs reflect a misunderstanding of modern trade dynamics. Domestic U.S. politics are considered another major factor. Chinese analysts note that a hardline stance on China is popular with American voters, particularly during election years. From this perspective, the tariffs serve both economic and political goals, reinforcing Trump's image as a defender of U.S. interests. In retaliation, China imposed its own tariffs targeting U.S. agricultural and industrial goods, while signaling openness to diplomacy. We know that by mid-2025, China had dispatched senior delegations to Geneva for negotiations, emphasizing that dialogue and compromise are preferable to escalation. Chinese experts also acknowledge that the tariffs disrupted global supply chains, promoting some foreign companies to relocate production to Southeast Asia to avoid the added costs. This posed challenges to China's manufacturing sector, but Beijing responded by accelerating industrial upgrades and strengthening trade ties with other countries, particularly through the Belt and Road Initiative. Overall, China views the tariffs as part of a broader U.S. strategy to limit its rise through economic means. Despite the serious implications, Chinese commentators consistently advocate for cooperation and fair negotiations through multilateral institutions, stressing that trade wars harm both sides and destabilize the global economy. So the tariff war has had significant effects on both economies. In the US, the economy shrunk by 0.3% in the first quarter of 2025, partly because of tariffs as high as 145 on Chinese imports. These tariffs fueled inflation, which consumer prices expected to rise by an additional 1% point by the year's end. Well, US consumers faced higher prices for goods like car seats and strollers, largely imported from China, and this led to an estimated 150 billion US dollars reduction in US household disposable income for 2025, with each household losing around $1,145 on average. Disproportionately affecting low-income families. Manufacturing was also hit hard. increased the cost for imported materials, raised vehicle production costs by about $1,800 per car, leading to 5% to 7% price hikes. The agricultural sector suffered from China's retaliatory tariffs, causing soybean exports to fall by 28% and contributing to a projected 15% rise in farm bankruptcies. In China, exports to the US dropped by 21% in April 2025, prompting a downward revision of China's GDP growth, forecasted to 3.4% for the year. And analysts predict a 20% reduction in Chinese exports to the US over 2025 to 2027, which could lower annual GDP growth by 0.6 percentage points. So the trade war also worsened the existing domestic challenges, including a property sector downturn, high youth unemployment, and the decline in consumer confidence. To counter these challenges, the Chinese government launched stimulus measures like subsidies for vehicle and appliance trade-ins to encourage domestic consumption. China also made strategic adjustments, negotiating reduced tariffs on certain American goods and pushing to strengthen emerging industries and technological self-sufficiency to buffer against external shocks. So China's response to the US tariffs in 2025 involved a broad strategy combining retaliation, economic support, resource control, and diplomacy. China imposed several rounds of retaliatory tariffs. We know that, raising rates on US imports from 84% to 125% in April. After the US raised its tariffs to 145%, China stated it would not respond to further US hikes, viewing them as unjustified. Additionally, we know that China restricted exports of critical minerals and also magnets crucial to industries like automotive, defense, and semiconductors, using this as a leverage in trade talks. To stabilize the economy, the People's Bank of China cut the benchmark 7-day repo rate by 0.1% to 1.4% and reduced the reserve requirement ratio by 0.5 points, reducing around 1 trillion Chinese yuan in liquidity. The Chinese People's Central Bank also guided banks to increase support for domestic consumption, exports, and technological innovation, launching a 500 billion yuan facility to boost spending on elder care and services, while at the same time, diplomatically, China maintained high-level engagement with Vice Premier He Lifeng, leading Geneva negotiations aimed at easing tensions and stabilizing trade relations. Well, China believes resolving the tariff war requires an approach that protects national interests while fostering mutual economic stability. And the Chinese government asserts that the US unilateral tariff increase have disrupted global trade and damaged both economies. And it calls for significant tariff rollbacks as a prerequisite for meaningful talks, while the US has also proposed reducing tariffs from 145% to 8%. China seeks a deeper rollback to restore balanced trade conditions, and the Chinese officials believe many US concerns, such as trade imbalance and intellectual property protections, can be addressed through constructive, good faith dialogue that respects both American and China's core interests. China emphasized resolving disputes within the World Trade Organization and other multilateral framework to ensure fair, transparent outcomes. Meanwhile, the Chinese government continues to bolster its domestic economy to mitigate the tariffs' impact and reduce reliance on external markets. China remains committed to high-level negotiations, viewing them as essential for articulating concerns and finding common ground. From China's perspective, the resolution of the tariff war depends on mutual respect, equitable treatment, and a commitment to international norms.
Can you stop the presentation because you have exceeded the time by quite a bit?
Thank you.
You're done?
Oh, well, I still have some words. Well, let me finish my words.
Okay.
By focusing on dialogue and fair negotiations, both China and the US can work toward a stable and prosperous long-term economic relationship. That is my understanding of the ongoing tariff war between China and the US. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Soong. Now it's my honor and privilege to invite Professor Sen Nieh. Professor Sen Nieh is currently based in Taiwan, so he will give a different perspective on US tariffs on China and Chinese response and how others are perceiving that. Professor Sen Nieh, the platform is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Adityanjee. Invite me again. By the way, I'm in New York now. Okay, not in Taiwan. I was asked to give my opinions on U.S.-China tariff war and its impacts on China. Very briefly, repeat the previous two distinguished guests say that since April 2nd, the U.S. imposed on all countries around the world with different reciprocal tariffs. At that time, a 34% reciprocal tariff for trade deficits on China, plus a 20% fentanyl tariff. So total 54% tariff was imposed on China. More than 100 countries expressed their willingness to negotiate one-on-one with the U.S. on tariff and trade. The day before yesterday, the UK has done the job on tariff talk agreement with the US. But China, one and only country, chose to retaliate the US with elevated tariff. So a week later, on April 9th, the global tariff was postponed for 90 days by the US for all countries except for China, the only one whose tariff was escalated to 145%. In this new run of tariff war between the US and China, China declared that it would fight to the end, and China would not kneel. Except for some exempt products, the US has raised all tariff in Chinese products to 145%, and some even to 245% for a few weeks now. At the same time, China imposed a 125% retaliative tariff on US goods. Today, May 8th and May 10th, at the same time, of our roundtable panel in Geneva, Sweden, our Secretary of Treasury, Scott Bessent, and holding the face-to-face tariff talk with a team led by He Lifeng, the highest economic official and the vice premier of China. And I heard that they had a meeting in the morning on 1.5 hours, then step out for lunch, to come back, have a meeting again, and perhaps tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. Nobody knows how this meeting is going and what the areas of tariff the two sides will discuss, and to what extent the discussion can achieve, and for what new percentage of tariff can be reduced to. But President Trump said yesterday that imposing an 80% tariff on Chinese products looks good. And Bessent also commented, I think the purpose of this meeting is to de-escalate. We have to stand down the situation before we can move forward. So US has 18 important trading partners and is currently negotiating with 17 of this country. China is the only exceptions. The tariff between US and China goes as high as 125, 145%, which basically means a trade embargo or trade interruptions with China. Everyone knows that it is a buyer's market. The US has not been affected much by China's 125% high tariff, but on the contrary, is in less than a month, US has generated tariff revenues of $15 billion from Chinese goods. Take Boeing Company as an example. In retaliation for US tariffs, Xi Jinping ordered all Chinese airlines to refuse to accept Boeing parts and services, and even to cancel 150 pre-ordered passenger planes. When the news came out, Malaysia, India, and Saudi Arabia all expressed their willingness to accept Boeing aircraft that China did not want, because new orders of Boeing planes are scheduled to 2030. So they can get the plane much earlier. It's happy. So on the same day of the news of boycotting Boeing came out, Boeing's stock price actually went up. This is mean that China is very dependent on the US in terms of high-tech section. So the China's retaliation is just shooting itself in the foot. And at the end of last month, April, the latest economic data released by Chinese government show that the trade war had caused a heavy blow to China's economy, with export orders falling, with factories' activity falling to its lowest level in a year. In Yiwu of Zhenjiang province, as an example, the largest major town for small commodity export in China, many companies can no longer hold on. The shipments of many local cross-border e-commerce and logistic companies have plummeted by 50 to 70%. There are frequent export reports of factory layoffs, shutdowns, and bankruptcies. At the same time, labor dispute continues in various places. Strike waves of wage demands broke out in Hunan province, Sichuan, Chongqing, and other places. In 2023, 2 years ago, the unemployment rate of Chinese youth exceeded 21%. Professor Zhang Dandan of economics at Beijing University, which is the best one in China, say that the real youth unemployment rate in China may be as high as 47%. The youth unemployment rate has been already very high last 2 years, but in the coming months, June, more than 12 million college students will graduate and want to enter the workplace. If high tariffs continues and trans-Pacific trade activity plummet, leading to stagnations of Chinese productions, then up to 20 million people may be unemployed. And this does not include more than 100 million temporary workers, 临时工, who work in various places for short terms. Many of these temporary workers are waiting for employment at the gate of factories and companies. They will not be counted in the official unemployment data. In recent years, numerous official statistics of China are being quietly removed. China has stopped publishing hundreds of economic and social data that were originally open to the outside world, from land transfer, foreign investment inflow, to unemployment rate, cremation data, and even soy sauce productions have disappeared. This is the way the CCP does not want the outside world to know the difficulty it faces. One economist has been assessing the health of China's service industry by counting the number of news reports about gyms and beauty salons owners suddenly closing down and running away with users' membership fees. He said, this is much more accurate than looking at GDP data. Real estate was once the engine of China's economy, but in recent years, the evolution of bankruptcy in real estate industry has dealt a fatal blow to local finances, and various real estate data have gradually disappeared too. I remember in 2007, the former Premier Li Keqiang, he was secretary of the Liaoning Province Party Committee at that time, told our ambassador to China that China's GDP was only a reference number, and that he believed more in electricity consumption, railway freight volume, and loan data. In summary, the U.S. tariff war against China has been going on for more than a month now, and China has declared that it will fight to the end. And President Trump said that the global tariff war can reduce the U.S. annual trade losses by nearly $1 trillion, or saving a trade deficit of $300 billion with China. But on the contrary, the tariff war is very unfavorable to China, which is an economic supported by export of huge trade volumes. So it depends. China dependency on U.S. market is far greater than the U.S. dependence on China. So, in my opinion, China cannot fight the prorated war. It is just tough talk and cannot win. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Nieh. Now I'm going to invite our last speaker, Mr. Sumeet Jain. And as I said, that he is based in Beijing, China for the last 13 years as a business consultant. So, Sumeet, the platform is yours. Please unmute yourself so that you can give your opening statement for 7 minutes.
Thank you so much. I've heard everybody, and sometimes they say the last person, either he's the best or the worst. So let's see what happens. As far as my take on the whole situation is concerned, I will take it a little bit different. First of all, we need to understand numbers. We understand, every panelist has already shared, but I would like to take the conversation towards, let's understand what is communism. Because unless we do not understand communist and communism, we cannot come to some kind of a conclusion. Please understand that communist people, first thing is they never surrender. And second thing is they play a long-term game. While in democracy, in democracies, we play always a game of 4 years, 5 years, because the president or the prime minister, they do not know whether next time they will become the prime minister again or not. While in communism, they do not have this problem. They can be the president for 20, 25 years, 30 years. Now, even after life also, they can remain a president. So the things become very different. So the decision making is long-term. And the Chinese, their long-term vision is that for 3,000 years, they could fight to build a China wall. That is the kind of patience Chinese keep. So this trade war, China also sees in the same way, that this is a temporary pause in their growth path. China sees Trump or America is just a stumbling block, which is trying to stop the growth of China, which they have achieved for the last 20, 25 years. Trade wars is just a reason to stop China from rising. This is first thing, what China sees. Second, China also knows that the dependency of America on China at the moment is huge. Even if they're trying to disrupt the supply chains, it will take some time. It is not easy to shift the supply chains overnight. It will take more than 5 years, 10 years to shift it. For example, Apple, they announced that if they have to shift everything from China to some other country, it will take them minimum 10 years. But Trump has only 4 years, and China knows it. So China also said one more thing, which was very startling, that Trump was saying this is going to be a game changer for America. Okay, let's see now the game changer. How communists think. Now we will enter into that sphere. Trump, how China sees is that this might be what Trump is doing right now on the tariffs. It might be the shortest revolution in the history of the world or in the America, or it might be the most embarrassing moment for United States. Why? Because Donald Trump was saying that these tariffs, which I'm going to put up, the reciprocative tariffs, it is going to change America's life of every citizen in America. if it was going to reshape the global trade and America's position in the world, then why was it that just after 1 week, he had to take a U-turn, had to put a pause for 90 days? This is where China had a big laugh. And that is why they stood tall that we have to fight it out because America cannot afford. This is what the thinking of the communist government in China was. China also, they started striking back on USA, which Trump or America was not anticipating that this might enter into this kind of a sphere. So this surgical strike, which Trump was trying to do on, I'm again saying, this surgical strike was not on the world, but it was on China itself, because the whole world, the pause was there, but the Chinese, the tariffs kept on increasing. China knows that they are the target because America doesn't like anybody rising in front of them. They did the same things to USSR. They split them into many countries. Now they're trying to do the same with China also. And China knows that they are the target. And this surgical strike, so-called economic growth bringing to America, is a flawed system, a flawed policy of America. Friends, let's understand one thing. America just said 2 or 3 things. They want to dismantle multilateralism. They've done that. They said every nation will be put a tariff of 10%. They've done that. They said that if everything was so nice, why did you surrender? Why did you retreat? Why did you abandon this policy for 90 days? That means there is something which is wrong. Wrong is that China is standing. They're not surrendering. And I told you before also, communist people, communist countries, they never surrender. They will keep on fighting, even if it is till the end. They will keep on fighting. And this is what exactly China is saying right now. Now, what is going to happen, or what China is planning? China knows that their major markets, like their exports, are hit. Their real asset market is going down. Their internal consumption is going down. The only thing which is making China survive is their investments into the futuristic technologies, artificial intelligence, and you can see electric vehicles, solars, all these kind of things is what China is banking upon. Why? Because China knows one thing, that if you keep on making plastic items or gift items or soft toys, they're not going to become great the way America has become. America became great only because they invested into these kind of futuristic technologies all their life. So China has to rise. They have to be in the future, not in the past. That is why now, even if the factories, like one of the panelists, they said that most factories in China are closing in a lot of provinces. China knows there's going to be a collateral damage. They're ready to take that bait. Why? Because they're not interested into those small factories anymore. They want that this, the dirty laundering for the world, which China has been doing for the last 20-25 years. It is not going to take them forward. What are they ending up with? They've got only debts on which China is now surviving, and like they're carrying on. So what China is thinking is, let's enter into something which the world, we have to shock the world. And we have seen with DeepSeek, one decision, one statement that DeepSeek is coming, just $5 million of investments, and you've seen 1 trillion going out from the stock market of America. And this is where China is hitting now. And they know that they have the upper edge. So what is China doing? China knows that America, I need America for exports. But if America is closing, I can replace America. Yes, it will take time, but I can create bridges, which he is doing with Japan. They're doing with Korea. They're going with Middle East, Africa, India. Now they are even going with adversaries. If they see India as an adversary, they're going for trade deals with India also. So that means China knows one thing, that we as Chinese will not surrender, will go for a long-term war, and we will go for the kill, which is called to win. Now they know that USA will also tighten the screws as far as China is concerned. They will try to create some kind of financial sanctions on China. China knows that. America, I don't know why, but they have banned Chinese students from coming into America. They're saying, and China also said, as far as Chinese are concerned, they said, please do not go to America. You might face some hostility. That means if they are not allowing Chinese students to come to America, who's losing money? America themselves are losing money because Chinese students are the #1 foreign students as far as American institutes are concerned, and they were pouring money into American universities. So America is hitting themselves more than they are trying to hit China and into these spheres. Now, as far as China is concerned, China knows that they were already struggling from post-COVID times. China was trying to come out of it, and at the same time, when they were trying to come out, these tariffs have come. So Beijing is bleeding at the moment to some extent as far as the economy is concerned. Yes, their economy is in trouble, and for the first time, I have seen Beijing suddenly admitting that yes, our economy is in trouble. They never ever admitted before. It's a very rare move from China. And then something startling happened, which never happened for the last 20 years. They announced a bold stimulus package also in March that we are going to support our companies. After that, I already told you, they've announced a lot of investments into AI breakthroughs, and you've seen DeepSeek, what they've done, and they're going to bypass these American sanctions, and the world is watching. Even JP Morgan, I think in 2025, January, February, they were saying maybe China's story is gone, that now nobody's going to come into China, or they were saying that whether the return growth will come, whether the investors will come. But at the moment, things are changing. Why? Because Beijing knows one thing, that the demand will come because they are the cheapest as far as EVs are concerned, the kind of industries they're working on. China knows one thing. They're playing a long-term game. Even if they're going to sell something on losses, it doesn't matter to them, but they want to win it. So they can afford it. They have the money with them, and they're going to go for the kill. And that is where the communism comes in. Democracy and communism cannot, because they do not think on the same lines. Things are different when it comes to China. One thing I can tell you, this trade war is not over. And there are going to be some stunning storms along the way. Sometimes America will keep on going back from whatever they said. Today now, America is saying that the tariffs might come down to 80%, 20%, 30%. Nobody knows what Trump is going to take a decision tomorrow. But China also, they are going now, America and China, they're doing one thing. Whichever industry they need support, they're reducing the tariffs in those things. Quietly, China has already reduced the tariffs on $40 billion of items they were importing from America. America has done the same. So that means there is going to be check and balances where America will give some, leave some. And that's how diplomacy works also. And China is also working on the same lines. You give some and you leave some. And that is where the balance will come, where they will start supporting each other in the future. You support me in certain things, I support you in certain things. You take care of your country, make China great again. I work on making America great again. And my last statement, when Trump came in, he said one statement, that if China and America work together, we can solve a lot of world's problems. That statement came not from China, but from America. And I see that in the future is going to be give some, leave some, work together to reduce the problems of the world. And we've seen recently that when it comes to Russia and Ukraine, Trump said that I think China's intervention, if China intervenes, they are in a position to reduce this tension between China and between Russia and Ukraine. And why not? Why not take their help? So you can see that this is exactly the same lines which is going to come in the trade war also. This is my opinion. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sumeet. I'm thankful to all our four panelists. The only thing I would say is that, except for the first panelist, all the panelists exceeded their time. So in principle of fair and balanced functioning, I'm going to give you 2 minutes, Mr. Ankush Bhandari, because you were the only one who spoke for 7 minutes. Everyone went over 10 minutes. So you have 2 minutes, and you were the first speaker, so at disadvantage. Please make any statement if you wish to make.
Yeah. So the only thing I can say, I agree with most of the panelists because there was a neutral biases on there. Some are pro China, some are pro America. The only thing I will make, yes, it will be beneficial for America to sign a couple of deals with all the major economic hubs in the world, like European Union, China, India, Australia, and it has already started, as we saw yesterday with the United Kingdom. But in the long run, Sumit very well points that they are investing more on the artificial intelligence, but they also need the money to do the investment in the latest and the greatest technologies of the world, and for the money to come back, they need some pumping of the money. And being America being the biggest economic partner, trade partner of the China, they have billions and billions coming into their economy, which is the main heart. And through this money only, they are making a steady progress, not only in their IT, but or the latest technologies, but also on the military front, which they are increasing rapidly. If you see the last couple of 5 or 10 years, they are increasing their military expenditure, couple of $billion every year. So that's the main hitting point, what I understand, that America wants to hit, or Trump administration want to hit, that if they don't have the money, they are going to crunch, and they are going to come under pressure that, okay, let's come and have a deal with America or with any other country. Like they are saying, like the latest they said to President Murmur of India, let's Dragon and India dance together. But I don't know how both adversaries will dance together. I don't think if they can shake hands in the next couple of years. So my final statement is, what Trump has done hit where it's hurt the most, and that's where he has hit the economically China. And I think, yes, America will face a lot of issue and is facing a lot of issue. It's a temporary phase. It will go in a year or two, and it will help America to build up what it was in 60s, 70s, and 80s, to go back to its base and roots, and build up more strongly, and present to the world what America stands for. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. My heartfelt thanks to all the panelists. Now, panelists are done, so we'll go on to question and answers. Having said that, I have a very distinguished person in the audience. He is Ambassador Pradeep Kapoor. He is a member of International Advisory Board of the Council for Strategic Affairs. Before I go to questions and answers, I would like to get the wisdom of his vast diplomatic experience. So Ambassador Pradeep Kapoor, if you can turn on your camera and give a few comments of your own on this particular subject, please.
Thank you very much, Dr. Adityanjee, and thank you to all the distinguished panelists. I've enjoyed listening to them. What I would like also to mention here is, since we are talking about US and China, that over the last so many decades, China has been able to move ahead, primarily because of the American support in so many different ways to its economy, and to opening up the American universities to Chinese students, and American technology and American corporations going into China and working there and having a very big manufacturing capacity there. And it is only recently that America has realized that it is hostage to China in many respects, in the sense that their manufacturing skills and expertise is now very vastly reduced. And that if China wants to engage in any sort of action vis-a-vis the United States, even in terms of drugs, for example, it is not easy for the US to cope with all those challenges. So in a way, the US has woken up to this fact quite recently. So it is trying to take whatever steps it is taking. It is not that the Western world is known for very great strategic thinking, as some of the speakers also mentioned. That is correct. They think in the short term or the medium term at the maximum. But what I would like to state from the Indian perspective is that if I see a country like China today, where does it stand on the global stage? How are the people reacting to that? How are the different countries reacting to China's rise or China as a country? I find a lot of mixed opinion, in the sense that the BRI, the Belt and Road Initiative, which was once known by a very strange name of One Belt, One Road, as if there can be no other belt and road around the world. They had to change it to BRI later to correct that sort of misperception. It is not flourishing at all. A lot of countries are backing out of projects. A lot of debts are owed by a large number of countries. I was told recently by a scholar that Pakistan owes China $26 billion for all the projects that China has done in Pakistan, a country which has less than $8 billion of reserves and has no capacity of paying back to any country any money, because they are going around all the time requesting for more money from the IMF and more projects from the World Bank. So they're totally dependent on foreign support, foreign aid. So even a country like that owes $26 billion to China. Now, for them also, for extending all these, projects to all these countries in a sort of a depredatory manner also, where the loans also are not really very clear as to what are the terms and conditions of the loans. So lots of countries are waking up to it. We have seen what has happened in Sri Lanka. So what do I see globally? If I look at China externally, the trust factor on China is very, very doubtful all over the world. There are very few countries which will come to the table saying that they trust China. I, as an ambassador of India, have noticed this in most of the countries I've worked in. The leadership of those countries are very doubtful about China's true intent. They are very suspicious. Sometimes they agree to what China wants because of the money factor, because of the loan factor, because of the commitments which China makes to, bring in projects for them or do some other things for their country. But overall, they are never comfortable in their minds to deal with China. So you have one aspect which is a very difficult aspect for China to overcome, which is the trust factor. In India also, we have seen that very significantly. In Doklam, in every time they sort of do not, behave to the levels of international relations which countries have to behave. I was told by Chinese scholars in the US, some very old scholars, that earlier the thinking in China was that for any person, any scholar to become a true guru, he had to go to Nalanda or any of the other Indian universities, Magad or Patliputra or any of those universities, study there, and then they would be accepted as true teachers or gurus even in China, or true pandits. Now, most of the scholars of the world who are Chinese origin, who have written histories of other countries, are the ones who studied in India. But then a time came when they wanted to erase that sort of history also, erase that sort of understanding also in the country, because they thought that it would show them as being inferior intellectually to India, and they made a conscious effort to wipe out that the traces of that knowledge or understanding in China and in other countries of the world. So if you have that sort of aspect, then you have land problems with all your neighbors practically. There's hardly any neighboring country of China which does not have border issues with China. Now, for a country to exist in this day and age with so many problems, with so many countries on their borders, is not an easy factor, because other countries keep on observing your behavior, keep on seeing your behavior. And even though if they may not say it openly, but in their deep down in their minds and in their strategic thinking, they realize that you are an untrustworthy partner. Internally, they had promised to give Hong Kong total autonomy till 2047. And 2047 is still 22 years away. And they have reneged on those commitments internationally. They have no respect for international treaties or norms or decisions. Like with Philippines on the law of the seas, they have reneged on those decisions. They're not followed through. So they have all these, claims, conflicting claims with all the countries in the neighborhood. They have problems internally. Tibet, for example, the amount of human rights violations which are taking place in Tibet or Xinjiang or Hong Kong also, and you utter something in Hong Kong today, you are not imprisoned in Hong Kong, but you're taken to China for mainland China for your prosecution. So to have that sort of continuous attacks on the soul of the people, on the minds of the people internally, and to have those continuous fights or distrust or conflicts non-stop with other countries, for a country then to make an enemy out of the US under those circumstances when your economy is not doing well. So while Sumeet has mentioned some of the very good points from the ground situation where the perspectives are very different, of course, and the people's thinking is very different, and the people's access to information is very different because of the communist control. But to get this perspective also is useful, but to understand that where does the country go from here, I think it is about time for the Chinese people to understand where they are currently, what is their future with this sort of system, whether it is a right path ahead for them, or whether they need some very deep reflection and introspection and change to become a positive force in the world and not the negative force that they are currently internally in the region, externally, and globally. Thank you, Dr. Adityanjee.
Thank you, Ambassador Kapoor, for your pearls of wisdom. I hope everyone pays attention to them, especially if anybody from CCP is listening. And they would be, because they would have access to our live streaming as well as our recording on our website. I think that will be very helpful to them. I'm going to start with question and answer session, and my first question is Professor David Soong, and I've already actually put the question in the chat box because of the linguistic difficulty. So China holds $780 billion worth of US Treasury bonds. Will it try to sell it as a leveraging point against United States in this trade war? You are muted, so kindly unmute yourself, David. Please unmute yourself. Unmute yourself, you are muted.
Doctor, thank you for your question. Well, my answer goes like this. We know that China's holding of approximately 780 billion US dollars in US Treasury bonds. US Treasury bonds is often cited as a potential strategic asset in managing bilateral tensions. From China's point of view, while this reserve provides certain leverage, the practical limits and the inherent risks of using it aggressively are well understood. First, the U.S. treasuries remain a cornerstone of China's foreign exchange reserves. They provide liquidity, stability, and security unmatched by other global assets. Selling a large portion certainly would undermine the value of, the United States remaining holdings and trigger unnecessary volatility in global markets. The outcomes that would harm China's own economic interests, I should say, particularly the United States export sector and the broader financial stability. Well, second, I think the Chinese government recognized that the U.S. Treasury market is highly resilient, even if we were to reduce our holdings significantly. Other international investors and domestic U.S. institutions could absorb much of the impact. Furthermore, the U.S. Federal Reserve has ample tools to mitigate short-term disruptions, limiting the effectiveness of an attempt to use treasury sales as direct leverage. China's long-term strategy emphasizes financial prudence and international responsibility. Any abrupt or aggressive action with treasuries would not only damage China's economic interests, but also weaken global trust, I think. This would contradict China's broader goals of international cooperation and peaceful development. However, I think the Chinese government in China reserves the right to manage its reserves according to its own interests. While a drastic move is unlikely, I think, China can and has gradually diversified its reserve assets to reduce over-reliance on US bonds. We remain vigilant and retain the flexibility to adjust our strategy as circumstances evolve. While China's treasury holdings provide some strategic weight, we view them primarily as an instrument of financial stability, not confrontation. Responsible stewardship of these assets aligns best with China's long-term national interests. So
Thank you,
anyway, I
Professor.
think that
You
if
have
the
answered.
Chinese government wants to sell or still reserve the treasury bonds, they will take this very seriously and carefully. Thank you. That's my answer.
Thank you, Professor Soong. My next question goes to Ankush Bhandari. Ankush, a number of speakers alluded to China's lack of respect for international norms, international treaties. In light of this, do you think it was a mistake to allow China, access to WTO system, which it has exploited in a predatory manner? In hindsight, was it a mistake? And if it was a mistake, how it can be corrected?
Very, very good questions. Because I would say China is the king of all the maximum of the problem which we are facing in the world right now because of its aggressive policies. And yes, the world organizations like WTO, World Health, we have seen in the past when COVID impacted, they were very much sidelining with China, thinking, oh, it's a simple flu, it's everything is going good. And the world faced for a couple of years, I will say 2 years, the havoc. It's absolutely absurd that China has been allowed to go to WTO and put it up its case when its own house is not clean up. Wherever they have gone, whether it's the Chinese Belt and Road Initiative, whether it's the pearl across the Indian Ocean, the necklace of pearls across the Indian Ocean, they have just one motto to make up military bases over there instead of economic upliftment of the countries, whether it's Africa, Asia, or any other countries who are poor. I will not use the word third world country because I think it's very racist, but all the poor countries who need the Chinese help. So going to the WTO and putting up its paper saying that we are being harassed or we are being bullied by that country, I think first Chinese, if CCP is hearing that, they should clean up their own mess and stop bullying the countries economically, militarily, and everything what they do on the borders with its 13 or 12, 13 neighbors they have. So that was the first part of the question. What was the second part of the question, Adityanjee, you asked? You are muted. You are muted.
What can be done to rectify China's accession to WTO that was allowed in December of 2001 without any conditionalities? So can conditionalities be put now retrospectively?
Yeah, the best way is now is 2025. The whole economic power as well as the to take up the countries from each continent who are economically strong, like from Asia, they can take Japan, India, China. From Africa, we have Nigeria, South Africa, from Europe, from Australia, from North America, from South America, and there should be a voting system which says whether China will be allowed for this or not. And let's see how the world works. Because as we always say, UN, we have 5 permanent members, it should also be increased. So it's each forum of the world needs to be refinished now because it's no more a unipolar or a bipolar world left. It's a multipolar world. So a proper voting system should be done, and then let the world decide what WTO should. Because the way that China has done in the last 20, 25 years, bullying its neighbor, bullying everywhere we have gone, putting the countries under economic pressures, becoming them the economic slaves, is not the way the world should work. Thank you.
Thank you, Ankush. My next question goes to Professor Nieh. Professor Nieh, please unmute yourself. A point was raised by one of the panelists, I won't name, but the point was made that US has restricted entry of Chinese students and they are the largest contingent. They were the largest contingent, now they are the second largest contingent. The largest contingent of students is from India to United States. And if the students don't come, the US universities don't get the fees and they suffer. Now, the reason why Chinese students are being restricted because Chinese government uses the student for espionage purposes. And there are instances when Chinese researchers and academics in various labs have stolen IPR, intellectual properties, and sent them to China. So there's a lot of concern that students are sent as spies, and Chinese government maintains actually overseas police stations in United States to threaten the family members back in China. So they are being actually held as hostage here, forced to do the bidding of Chinese Communist Party so that their parents, their loved ones are not harmed in China. That's the apparent reason US government is restricting. What are your viewpoints? Because you are very active on the human rights scene and you are studying these problems very closely, especially the behavior of Chinese Communist Party. Do you have any comments to make on this issue?
Yeah, thank you. This is a very good questions. Yes, it's all the Chinese once they are under pressure by the ruling Communist Party, they probably need to do something to serve the party. And the student from China to United States directly or indirectly may steal the intellectual properties, okay, from the laboratories, from from the society. And there is about 300 billion US dollars loss of stealing of intellectual property by China. Okay, so this is a big loss of the money from the country, much more than the tuitions incomes for the universities. So it is, yes, university get tuition income from Chinese students, but on the other hand, the country lose a lot billions every year. Is about 300 billion US dollars. So there will be a balance of that. And another thing is I know that in our Congress, they have been thinking to pass a Communism Teaching Act to ask all the Chinese Americans, about 2.4 million Chinese in United States, need to go through this learning about communism, the crimes, okay, the brutal, deceptive nature of communism, to get training. And if they were the Communist Party members or Communist Youth League, they need to declare the cut ties from the communisms to show their loyalty to the country. Then once, and I think there will be a education program through the United States to help those people from China to make decisions to cut the tie from the communism in order to earn the loyalty to the country. I think that will each and every Chinese will need to think whether they need to which part they want loyal to. Okay, loyal to United States here, you are here, your families are here, or you loyal to the other side, you still whatever things, evil things there. Okay, I think the Chinese people are very smart. Okay, very smart. They have direct experience with the ruling Communist Party in the past 75 years. They're more than half of the Chinese individuals being directly or indirectly persecuted by this party. Okay, and more than 90% of the families has at least one death caused by this party. So the CCP is not getting the power by elections but democratic votings, or they are not son and daughters of the royal family. They just grab the power as a group of scoundrels. And Chinese people know that. Okay, and their legitimacy, they try to the ideology of communism is complete collapse in China. Their legitimacy of ruling the country is because they think they can bring good life to Chinese people. So economy, health economy is very important for communists to hold on to their power. But now it's shaking. This tariff war will make them to see how whether they can bring good life to Chinese people. So there will be soon. So my personal observation is when the confrontation from U.S. and China has become escalated, yes, there's more than 2 million Chinese Americans need to face the serious questions. Which side you want to take? Then their program will help them to really embrace these universal values and democratic free society. Or they want to work for this brutal and evil regime.
Thank you, Professor Senni. My last question goes to our final panelist, Mr. Sumeet Jain. Kindly unmute yourself. Sumeet, you have lived in Beijing or China for last 13, 14 years. And there is a trend now amongst college educated graduates in China that because of the problems, they are moving to first that the unemployment in that section of Chinese society is 24%, and they're moving to rural areas, not willing to compete in the rat race of modern capitalist world, and they are quote unquote flatlining. With this tariff war and effect on Chinese economy, how would Chinese society, especially the youngsters, respond? Will this flatlining and exodus to the rural areas and not getting married? And socio-anthropologically, you are a participant observer. What do you envisage as a result of this?
So the question is very clear. As far as the Chinese youngsters are concerned, they feel, the Chinese youngsters, they feel that, this is one, you can say, the generation who have not seen the bad times. They were born in good times, golden spoon in their mouth, everything was, working very well. They never know what is struggle. Their parents have seen the struggle in their life, not these kids. So now when they have to face this, so they have taken the easy path. They do not know what is hard work. Their parents know what is hard work, the value of hard work, and that is what makes a communist country. They are taught right from childhood. Good study day up. David and Sen will know what I'm talking about. Good study day up. There you keep on studying well, and one day you will rise in your life if you do hard work. The hard work is the basic of communist country. You have to do hard work for what? Not for your own good life. It is for making your country number one in the world. Chungguo means with the center of the world. Our policies, the policy we make, the whole world has to adhere to it. Now, that dream is breaking up. Like Mr. Sen, he said that the Chinese dream, which the communist country had sold to the youngsters here, is breaking down. So what the kids are doing, either they're working on delivery boys, taking small jobs, just because they do not want to lose their face. Coming back to the same statement which I gave before.
I'm afraid
also,
you do not understand the Chinese people and the Chinese China
Kindly not interrupt the person who is giving his answer. Okay, Sumeet, go ahead.
So what the Chinese are doing is now, whatever opportunities they're getting, because they don't want to lose their face. They want to grab to whatever opportunities they're there. And also, so whatever is coming, small jobs also they're doing. Actually, Mr. David, he just broke my whole rhythm. Sorry to say that. But second thing also they're doing is, now the government is also doing that. What is the future? The future is not those old industries in which Chinese were investing. The future is the futuristic industries. Now everybody is getting those new trainings from the government, which we call as skill development, same thing which other countries also doing, including India. They're now looking at what are the skills which the industry needs. The kids are now being trained into those industries so that there are opportunities, ample opportunities for them in China as well as in the world. Now, why I'm saying in the world, because the Chinese government has told the companies, do not only invest in China, but start investing overseas also, so that whenever you invest overseas, you can build there, you can take over the industries in those countries, and also you have ample opportunities of exporting to other countries from there itself. Because there are some sentiments anti-China, but if the Chinese company is putting a factory in India and sending under Make in India, then a lot of countries, they do not have that anti-China, anti-India sentiments. So this is where the Chinese government is now giving training to their people so that they can prepare themselves for the future. So this is how things are going. They're lying down flat at the moment. You have seen that in a lot of videos, but it's not a normal norm in all over China. Some people might be doing it, and you know that when a big country, they're going down, then it is easy to sell the negative story. So I'm in China here. I do not see a lot of lying down statements happening here. People lying down in the villages, going to their back home. It's not that easy. Why? Because saving the face is the biggest thing. If they go back to the village, they will lose their face. They don't want to do that. They'll go for small jobs in the city itself, but they will not go back to the village and let people laugh at them. That Chinese will never do. I told you in the initial stage, communism means we will not bow down, we will not surrender, we will not give up. They will keep on working hard. They will keep on learning the new things and take the thing forward. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Sumeet. I'm going to take a couple of questions from the audience. So I'll read with the first question, which is from Mr. Harsh Sinha, based in New Delhi. Could renewed geo-economic confrontation in the form of tariff war bleed into enhanced military posturing and stealth operations in the South China Sea or Taiwan Strait under Trump 2.0? And maybe Ankush can answer that.
Yeah, so what I understand is the question asked that whether under Trump administration the South China Sea will be his target by economic sanctions, right?
Yeah.
If I understand the question, right? Yeah.
South China Sea or Taiwan,
Yeah, because see, as one of the panelists said, America never wants anybody to stand against it, and that's very true. Means from the last 85 years since Second World War, America has always see that it's only the world power. Nobody else can stand against it. And economic sanction, as I mentioned in one of my answer, yes, by hit where it hurts the most. And in case of China, it's the economic power it has become in the last 20 years, and only with the help of US. If you see by 1992, when Clinton started pursuing the companies to go back to China and do the production there, then only the Chinese growth started. It didn't start in 1970s when they already have the deals with America during the Nixon era. It started 20 years later. In mid-90s, or I will say early 2000 to maybe 2010, when the Chinese trajectory was like this, completely like this, growing by every quarter of trillions every year. So yes, Trump administration is doing very good, I think, by hitting China, because if the China doesn't have money, it is not going to do all those things in the South China Sea, which they are doing, hampering to Philippines, to Taiwan, to other countries, to in the Himalayas towards India. Because if you have the money, you can do it. If you don't have the money, you can't go on an aggression, because beggars cannot be choosers, right? They have to choose whether they want to survive with to have their people eat the food or to put the guns on the other countries.
Thank you, Ankush. There's a question from one of our audience members, Tangai Mariga, and this is to Ambassador Kapoor. So Ambassador Kapoor, kindly unmute yourself. The question is, considering your experience in international relations, what avenues of diplomatic engagement do you believe offer the greatest potential for the US and China to recalibrate their trade policies in a way that supports global economic stability and shared prosperity?
Well, the trade policies and the current tariff trade war is just a manifestation of a much deeper malaise. Now, have to resolve this. There are a lot of things which need to be done. First of all, they have to get talking to each other in a positive way with positive intent. And if you are harassing the US Army, US Navy, US Marines, US Air Force in the Indo-Pacific, and if you are doing all the other things that you have been doing so far, that does not give trust amongst the American community. Today, what I see in the US is that the people of the US have the same feeling of distrust towards China as the people of India. So it is a very widespread feeling that they have been stealing your technology, they have been, dumping goods, they have been having massive trade deficits to the extent that they have denuded America of its manufacturing prowess, of its manufacturing skills and capacities, and created this great trade imbalance also. So if you now have to establish a good relationship, which also finally impacts the tariff war in a positive way, is you have to start firstly, as I said earlier, seeing how you have to change your own thinking, change your own actions, change your own behavior to make it more internationally acceptable as the international norms, as per, like the Indians say, belonging to a global family. You cannot have that same aggressive stance which you have had earlier. You cannot continue with those predatory sort of loans which have been doing under BRI. You have to recalibrate yourself. You have to reset yourself. You have to think back to a China of earlier era when it was not trying to create fentanyl drugs and dumping them in the Western world in a very big way as a sort of a payback for what the Western world did to China with the opium wars. So I think you have to see where the future of the world lies, where the future of China lies, and thereafter, after you have taken a stock of that, change your thinking and perception, and then you get into a genuine sort of discussion and negotiation and approach the world with that different approach. That is when real change will come. Otherwise, it will be a superficial change with every day, all these wars going on, tariff wars going on, the Taiwan issue being very difficult for China and for the world. So all these issues will continue to be very important issues till you start respecting the otherness of others, till you start respecting the other countries, till you start respecting their concerns, until you start changing your behavior accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Kapoor. With those words of wisdom of yours, we are coming to an end of this roundtable discussion. My heartfelt thanks to Mr. Ankush Bhandari, Professor David Soong, Professor Nieh, Mr. Sumeet Jain, Ambassador Kapoor, our audience members who found more than 1.5 hours on this Saturday, and finally, my heartfelt thanks to Team CSA, Mr. Ripudaman Pachori and Mr. Rajiv Verma, who make these things happen. They work in the background, they work really very hard and help me arrange these programs. So thank you to everyone.
Thank you.
Hopefully everyone has learned something from this discussion, specifically the CCP and the Trump administration, because it's in no one's interest to have a global trade war. Thank you very much indeed for your participation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.